Due to a recording mishap, the last two episodes of The Sim Gamers did not contain any sound. Thankfully, the game did not save, and we will be able to pick up from where we left off in the next video. There now follows a short recap of the events of these episodes, which are to be considered non-canon, alternate timeline events. What follows is the darkest timeline. The next morning, Luke meets Susie, who is on her way to cook food. She then eats the food, suggestively. The rest of the family fall asleep, while Chard builds an outhouse for the family, featuring modern conveniences such as walls, toilets, sinks, and baths. And doors. Yeah. Lovely, isn't it? Susie plays with Ed for a while, who is determined to get a job. Susie puts on some hot dogs to cook for the family and then decides to clean up. She, however, while cleaning up, becomes distracted as Ed is destroying the furniture. She goes to scold him, but unfortunately the cooking has been left unattended and begins to burst into flame. Susie starts to panic for a while, and her anguished cries alert Chard to the fact the fire is slowly starting to spread. Chard dances in his underwear. Eventually, the whole garden is engulfed in flame. Ed and Susie burn to a crisp, and the whole garden furniture just goes up in flame. Susie is the first to succumb to death, shortly followed by James. Ed tries to squelch the flames by pissing on it, which doesn't seem to work much at all. Ed, meanwhile, is running around barking, having a whale of a time with this brand new game. Finally, James dies. The second Moffat to do so. The mailman goes past and is completely nonplussed by the sight of a family going up in flames. Ed passes out and falls asleep, warming his toes as Chard finally burns to death. The neighbours come and scream and holler, but no one seems to actually take the initiative of screaming and going to get any sort of help. Ed dies, leaving Luke to mop up the ashes of his friends. Luckily, this was all a dream, and Susie wakes up the next morning. The family are still in one piece, and mysteriously, an outhouse has been built. It looks slightly different from the other one. Clearly this is another alternate timeline. She decides to fix more food, but meanwhile the plates are starting to rot outside. Doesn't the outhouse look nice this time? Susie decides to clear up all these plates as they are starting to attract flies and maggots and generally look unsavoury. She tries to cook again. The nightmare still reeling in her head, she cooks a lot more carefully this time, and no fire occurs. Well done, Susie. However, she is too busy clearing up the plates and never actually gets around to eating anything. By the time dawn breaks, she's still clearing up all the plates from last night. She seems to have developed a bit of an obsession with this. Even when other members of the family are getting on their business, Susie is clearing up the plates. Just keeps clearing up the plates, really. This culminates in her finally succumbing to her hunger, and once again, dying. Why eat something, for God's sake? The Grim Reaper comes to take her body away. Luke, desperate to get to work, cannot do so because James is in the doorway pleading for his sister's life. He's tried to make a bargain, and Death, well, being Death, decides to give him fair game, letting him pick which hand the coin is in. Luke is still trying to get to work, and Ed is playing with a chew toy. And as you would expect, Death, rigging the system, takes Susie's body away. Once again, the death of the family member and the imminent firing of two of its employees means we have to remake the game.